Okay, so thought I'd make this video because a lot of people ask me about my feelings about Uber and what it's like to be an Uber driver. And obviously there's controversy out there in social media. People talk quite a bit about how Uber is the devil and destroying the market for cab drivers and for unionized systems, and I get that. I appreciate that. So I just wanted to clear the air and let people know from my personal perspective where I'm coming from. And as somebody who used to drive for a taxi company in the city of Madison, I can tell you right off the bat, I enjoy driving for Uber a lot more. First of all, dispatchers. Now, don't get me wrong, I sympathize with them, and on some levels I even empathize. They're essentially held captive in a tiny little room, and it's their role and responsibility to keep track and coordinate a broken system. And of course they get frustrated, they get stressed out, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, what happens more often than not is that they internalize that frustration and stress, and they project it not only on the drivers, which is a bad thing because they're already under stress because they're driving, but also on the potential passengers, people who are calling in for rides, so that by the time the passenger and the driver meet, there's already an existing conflict, which could then result in a passenger deciding to not tip a driver based on their experience with the dispatcher, and then the driver drops them off and they feel shunned, and then they're bitter, and then it just carries negativity in all directions, and it's sort of senseless. On the topic of accountability, now there are a lot of people who have argued, mostly cab drivers that I've known, who have argued that Uber doesn't vet their drivers properly and there isn't a thorough background check. Well, I can guarantee you right now that that is not true, and that it took like 2 weeks for my background check to be cleared, as with everyone else I know who is an Uber driver. In contrast, I happen to know of one or two cab drivers who have violent offenses on their records and were hired. And if somebody is looking to investigate a cab driver, there's a good chance that that person might be protected by somebody in the cab company. Whereas, like, the Uber company, the Uber system, really has no emotional investment in its drivers. We're not employees, even. We're private contractors. So nobody's going to try to cover for us for the sake of loyalty. It'd be silly. When people damn Uber and say that it's destroying the cab industry, and and it's making it tough for people in that industry to make a living, I get that. I do. I appreciate it. But it's evolution, baby. Like the same thing happened when the automobile was first introduced to society. The horse and buggy people lost their minds. They were like, oh my God, we're going to lose everything. What are we going to do? It's like, well, you're going to have to evolve. You're going to have to develop with the rest of society. The same thing with cassettes and CDs, beta and VCRs. It's the way we work as a society. As technology advances, so do our practices. And because we seek convenience seemingly over all, Uber just makes more sense for people. People want to ride right now. They want to know when their ride is going to get there. They want to know who's picking them up. And those are all things that are available with Uber. Also, or if cab companies were to maybe just eliminate the dispatcher and figure out a way to tap into the technology that Uber is using, where they hone in on algorithms and they can just connect the rider with the driver, there wouldn't really be a whole big problem here. And I'm sure at some point Uber will unionize its drivers. It's, at some point there will be this middle ground. I believe that, and I think probably a lot of other people do too. It's just a matter of time. I think Uber is a better gig, and there are those who argue, that the surging and all of that seems unfair. Let me let you in on something. There isn't like a group of people sitting in a little room somewhere, twisting their mustaches, saying, "Oh, let's rake up the prices now." And charge everybody a buttload of money. It doesn't work that way. As the demand goes up, the price goes up. If a whole lot of people are requesting rides at one time, then the surge goes up. That's just how it works, and that's the price people pay for convenience. A couple more things. There's a level of accountability with picking up an Uber passenger that doesn't exist with picking up a cab passenger. Also, if you've ever walked into like a 7-Eleven and maybe you don't see someone behind the counter immediately, but you know that there are cameras, that you're being monitored in some way, you understand that there's accountability there. The same is true when someone gets into an Uber ride. They understand on some level that, that they're linked to this. They're juiced in. And they're less likely to act out of sorts or, act in ways that would be undesirable or make a person feel unsafe. When they get in my car, I feel safer. And speaking of which, because it's my car, I'm more invested in this vehicle. So I'm not going to take turns real hard. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be leaning on the gas and the brakes real stiff. I'm going to treat this vehicle better. I'm going to drive safer, which makes for a safer ride for them. Not only that, but with this being my car, I have a reason to keep it clean, and when people get in this vehicle, they're gonna feel more comfortable. With any kind of company car or anybody that's rented a car, you're not as emotionally invested in it, so you're not going to treat it as well. And also, if you're driving a company car, you understand that the company's insurance will cover any damages. That's not going to happen here. I have to cover this vehicle, so I'm going to take good care of it. Let's talk about money. With Uber, very little money exchanges hands, if any. And that basically eliminates the risk of robbery. That was something that would always be a concern for a cab driver. But, if people want to tip, that's totally up to them. But it's not customary as it is with cab driving. And also, because I'm not counting money along the way, I'm not stressing about how much I'm earning. In fact, sometimes I don't even look at what I'm earning until the end of the night. You know what else I'm not looking at? Other cab drivers. As you drive a cab, you see people that work for the same company as you, and you're aware that you're all in competition. And that's a stress. Anytime I look around, I don't know who's another Uber driver. If I see somebody with a mounted phone in their car, I could assume that they're an Uber driver. I could also assume that they're just somebody who's smart enough to not hold their phone while they drive. So for all those reasons, Uber is better, in my opinion.